Okay. Welcome everybody. One more minute and we will get started. Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate you being here with us. And it looks like we have a great group, so we will get started. Welcome everybody to our Fresh Produce 101 virtual training, part of the Food Council's fall series of virtual trainings. So thank you for joining us today. I am Elizabeth Tewin. I'm a Food Security Outreach Vista here with the Food Council, and I am joined by my colleagues Anne-Marie Hart Bookbinder, who is the Food Security Program Manager, Allison Schnitzer, who is Manager of Food Access Initiatives here at the Food Council, and Susan Kornacki, who is now a consultant with us here, and Cynthia Cuestas, who is a fellow Food Security Outreach Vista. So thanks to all of the staff here today for supporting this effort. Just some brief housekeeping notes before we introduce our featured speakers and jump into today's programming. We are recording this training so that we can share the contents with those who registered but couldn't be here today. We invite everybody to introduce yourselves in the chat box. We have a very full program today, and we want to encourage as much dialogue and interaction as possible, lots of questions, so feel free to populate that chat box with all of your questions. Anne-Marie and Cynthia will be monitoring it, and so we encourage that. We also wanted to let you all know that we are going to follow up this training with a full list of resources shared, all of the slide decks and the recording of this training, so that you will have all the information at your fingertips. We really hope you just sit back today and relax and take it all in, and we will arm you with all of the information following this. That email will probably go out on Monday, so look for it then. And now on to our main presentation. We are here today because of the feedback that we've received from all of you. The #1 request we hear from our community members experiencing food insecurity is access to fresh produce. We see some familiar faces out there in the audience today and recognize that some of you have been making fresh produce available for quite some time. But we also hear from a lot of organizations who maybe are just providing shelf-stable products, and they really want to know how to engage with fresh produce and do this in a way that is safe. That is what a lot of our programming today will be about. But we also recognize that some of you are here who might not be in the direct business of distributing food, but you're working with individuals who need access to fresh produce. So later in our presentation, we're also going to be talking about some alternative ways to get that access and to point you in the right direction with resources there. So to start off today, we are going to be hearing from our first two featured guests, Marla Kaplan and Cheryl Collin. I know many of you are familiar with their work. Marla is currently the food coordinator for the Montgomery County Food Security Task Force. And in this role, she assists food assistance providers with procuring an assortment of foods for distribution to Montgomery County residents in need. And prior to her work at the task force, Marla worked with the Montgomery County Public School System as Director of Student Wellness and also as the Director of Food and Nutrition Services for many years. And Cheryl is a business consultant, and she serves as the Program Director for Community Food Rescue, which is a program of Manna Food Center. Cheryl earned her MBA in Sustainable Business and is a founding member of the Montgomery County Food Council. So we are grateful to both Marla and Cheryl for the support they've given the Food Council over the years. And with that, I welcome the two of them to take things over.
Great, thanks so much, Elizabeth. Good afternoon, or good morning. I guess we're still in morning. Morning, everyone. Again, I'm Cheryl Collin. I'm the Program Director of Community Food Rescue, and so happy to share the stage this morning with my colleague, Marla Kaplan. So as Elizabeth mentioned, we're going to be talking about fresh produce. We call it Fresh Produce 101, really how to feed more people, how to waste less, and how to practice food safety. So can everybody see my slides?
I see them. They look great, Cheryl.
Thank you. So we're going to share information about receiving fresh produce through one of several sources in Montgomery County. how to receive, how to prepare, and how to store this food safely. I'm going to focus on Manna Food Center's Farm to Food Bank program, and Marla will discuss the Montgomery County's Purchased Produce program. And as Elizabeth mentioned, please write your questions in the chat box, and we'll be able to take them at the end. So I am trying to advance my slides. And it's not working. Let me see if I can.
Hey, Cheryl, what happens if you hover your mouse in the bottom left-hand corner? Sometimes that's what I need to do to see the option to advance. No.
Very good. Thank you, Susan. All right. That's interesting. Just to give you some context, and particularly for folks who haven't either interacted with Manna Food Center or with Community Food Rescue before, I just wanted to kind of lay the foundation, the background of how we've come to the Farm to Food Bank program that will help you get some fresh produce. So first, Manna Food Center. Manna will be marking our 38 years in Montgomery County to serving Montgomery County residents. Manna's mission is to end hunger through food distribution, education, and advocacy. We serve 50,000 people and serve about 3.3 million pounds of food annually. We have many different programs for this food distribution, education, and advocacy programs such as Food for Families. We have a mobile market and pop-up pantries. We have a food education program, a choice market in Silver Spring. I'm going to be talking about our Farm to Food Bank program and the Community Food Rescue program. I'm just going to introduce for those of you who, again, aren't familiar with that program. So Community Food Rescue, Manna created 7 years ago, really to support and pick up smaller quantities of food directly from food businesses. We use a matching app called Chow Match to match food donor businesses with food assistance providers and volunteer food runners who deliver the food directly from donors to providers. You can see our statistics since 2015 when we started. We have almost 1,000 network members, and we've distributed 7.3 million pounds of food, which is the equivalent of about 6.1 million meals. So when we talk about recovered food, I want you to think about what you picture when you hear that term. What comes to mind? Simply put, we think of recovered food as really anything that's edible that would otherwise go to waste. You may think of fruits and vegetables that are left in a farmer's field after the commercial harvest, or perhaps packaged food with past date labels, or even funny looking produce that would not sell at a grocery store. These are all examples of food that we recover, but there's much more food to recover. We also consider really any surplus unsold food as recovered food, and Community Food Rescue happily accepts this food from any food licensed food business. But today we're going to focus on produce and how to get more fresh produce and how to handle and transport that safely. So when I'm referring to fresh produce, it might be recovered produce, or it might be freshly picked through the Farm to Food Bank program. Farm to Food Bank is a collaboration between Manna, the Montgomery County Food Council, and the Montgomery County Office of Agriculture. And thanks to funding through the county and through the Community Foundation of Greater Washington, Manna purchases freshly harvested produce, meat, and eggs from local farmers, and then donates and delivers it to Community Food Rescue Network food assistance organizations. And I'm really happy to share with you the growth of this program that started before COVID and has continued and has grown tremendously throughout COVID. So what's really exciting is that pre-COVID, there were 4 farms that Manna worked with. And last year, really the first year that we were in COVID conditions, the program grew to 18 farms and being able to purchase and distribute 18,000 pounds of food. And I'm so pleased to share that in this year, so far anyway, we've expanded to include 32 farms that Manna purchases food from, and it is about 60,000 pounds of food. At this point, I just want to pause and let you know, for those of you who have not yet joined the Community Food Rescue Network to get both recovered food and farm to food bank food, I've put in the link, communityfoodrescue.org, and you'll be able to go on that site and learn more about how to join the CFR network to get fresh food and recovered food. I wanted to also just share with you some of the farms that are participating in the Farm to Food Bank program. We work with all kinds of farmers that are growing in Montgomery County, and we're so pleased to see so many new farmers, farmers of color, women farmers who are joining this program. So we're able to support both well-established farms and new farmers as well. I just wanted to share with you one quote from farmer Tanya Spandla from the Passion to Seed Gardening. We asked farmers, why are they participating in the Farm to Food Bank program and what does it mean for their business? So Farmer Tanya talks about how the County to Farm to Food Bank program supports the environment. And she says, this program is the best of both worlds. Not only does the farmer get paid and the recipients get locally grown fresh produce, but this program reduces farm produce waste that would have decayed or decomposed in the field. This program helps to bridge the gap in some communities that are not able to support or to be able to afford good quality fresh produce. So Farmer Tanya is joined by lots of other farmers and are really, really excited to have this program available. So really, by providing this additional capacity to local farmers and making these benefits of their locally grown products available to all of Montgomery County residents, these investments will lead to what we hope is a post-pandemic food system that is more resilient to future disasters, better for farmers, better for consumers, better for the environment, and to ensure food security for all Montgomery County for years to come. That's our hope and our goal. Marla, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about other sources of produce.
Great. Thank you, Cheryl. And it's so nice to see all of you on today's call. I will echo Cheryl's words. Becoming a community food rescue partner really is a great way to receive fresh local produce and also a great opportunity to help our local farmers. So I encourage you to reach out and to participate. It doesn't cost anything. It's funded by the county, and Manna and Cheryl and Community Food Rescue are the ones that contact the farmers and make it happen for you. So I really, really do encourage everybody to participate. And there are also several other sources for produce in Montgomery County. Those of you that are partners of the Kaplan Area Food Bank are also able to receive fresh produce. If you're not yet a partner with Kaplan Area Food Bank, I encourage you to reach out. Anne Marie is going to put contact information into the chat box for you. Many organizations on this webinar receive produce that's paid by Montgomery County, which is handled through me. And then there are also many of us that partner with other organizations and look for donations to receive produce. And that's an excellent way to provide produce to the residents that you're distributing to. If anybody on this call is interested in their organization purchasing produce, many organizations do have additional funds and wish to purchase additional produce. I'm happy to facilitate that for you. Please feel free to reach out to me. Next slide, Cheryl. Thanks. I thought it would be helpful to share a list of fruits and vegetables and their seasonal availability. By the way, our slide deck will be available to you, so you can have this as a resource later. If you understand the optimum growing times during the year, it's important to recognize the importance around cost efficiency and receiving high quality produce. Think about it. If you buy a strawberry in the dead of winter here in Maryland, it was probably grown in California or South America. Besides being expensive, think of the steps that it took in the preservation process. Ripeness at the time of harvest must be at a certain point. Temperature control during the entire transport process is key. And then even then, only about 20% of the shipment ends up being usable at the end of the transportation line. So unless absolutely necessary, purchase produce during its optimum growing season. So let's switch over, and while the cost and quality of produce we receive is vitally important, I'd like to turn our attention to food safety. I'm sure we have all heard the phrase potentially hazardous food. What does that really mean? So I'm going to give you the definition. Potentially hazardous foods are foods that must be kept at a certain temperature to minimize the growth of harmful bacteria or to stop the formation of toxins. In order for bacteria to grow, they need the right environment. They need the right temperature. They need the right pH. When we talk about pH, we're talking about acid and base balance. They need moisture, and they need a host. When we think of potentially hazardous foods, we usually think of protein. Why is that? Because proteins are a perfect host. When we talk about pH, that acid and base balance, this refers to the acidity of an item. The higher the acidity of an item, the less likely it is to support and grow bacteria. So let's talk tomatoes. They're high in acid. You don't hear about incidences of foodborne illness in canned tomatoes, do you? But what about mushrooms? Very low acid. And it isn't surprising that occasionally we hear about outbreaks with canned mushrooms. Think about our proteins. Think about our chicken and our eggs.
Marla, you've frozen up just a bit.
Yes, she has.
She might for a second.
There she goes.
There we go. Marla, we lost you for just a moment when you were talking about mushrooms.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So mushrooms, by them being very low in acid, are a perfect place for bacteria to occur. So every once in a while, we do hear about foodborne illnesses tied to mushrooms. But when we think about proteins, they're not very acidic. So your chicken and your fish and your beef. So when we add to a protein bacteria and moisture and the temperature that we're going to talk about later, we have a perfect host. So what about fruits and vegetables? As we focus on food safety in fruits and vegetables, should we worry about the potential of foodborne illness involving produce? Well, while it's true, next slide, Cheryl, please. While it's true that whole, uncut fruits and vegetables are generally safe, there are exceptions. Just a few weeks ago, there was a recall on onions due to an outbreak of salmonella. You may remember several years ago, there was an E. coli outbreak tied to romaine lettuce. While we, the consumer, couldn't have prevented this problem, it's important to know where our produce comes from. In the event of an outbreak, such as the recent one involving onions, if you cannot determine the source, they should be discarded. If you purchase that product at a grocery store, you can return that item and the grocery store will refund your money. Going back to the case of the onions, as soon as we knew that there was an outbreak in onions, for those of you that receive produce from Montgomery County, I reached out to our produce company to determine the source of our onions. And fortunately, these onions were from Peru, not from Mexico, where the outbreak occurred. And so you all were notified that the onions that you received were fine and could be distributed to our residents. So that's really important, is knowing the source of where the outbreak occurred. So here we go into some ways that fruits and vegetables can be potentially hazardous. So this is important. Any fruit or vegetable that has undergone a change from its original state becomes a potentially hazardous food. So prepared fruits, fruit salad, green salads, cut up fruits and vegetables, anything heated. And you think about that, we need moisture, we need a host, and we need temperature and the right pH. So anytime we alter the state of a whole fruit or vegetable, it becomes a potentially hazardous food. So let's think about the watermelon with dirt on the outside, or being handled by a food service worker with dirty hands or a dirty knife. Once that watermelon is sliced, the clock starts ticking for the growth of bacteria. And by the way, don't forget rice and pasta. Cooked rice and cooked pasta left out of refrigeration have the potential for bacteria growth as well, because their original state has been altered, and now moisture has been added into the product. So how do you know that the produce that you're receiving is safe to eat? Next slide, Cheryl, please. There are times when you're ready to prepare or eat a produce item and there are visible, obvious signs of poor quality or spoilage. If a product is slimy or moldy, obviously it should be discarded. But there are other signs when evaluating produce. If the product is squishy, it's probably overripe. It's probably okay to eat, but not a product that should be purchased or received. If you are purchasing a melon and you thump on it and you hear a hollow inside, it means it's probably good, it's ripe, and it's ready to eat. If it's dull, if that thump is dull, it's probably too ripe and probably mushy. If onions smell too oniony, they've probably gone bad, not for consumption. If berries smell too sweet, they're probably getting ready to turn bad, so they need to be eaten quickly. Potatoes that start to go bad give off a bitter smell. If the potato is wrinkly or soft, it could mean that the potato has already gone bad. Potatoes that have that green tinge around them could mean the toxins are being formed. Immediately discard that potato. Peppers that are close to spoiling or soft and wrinkly, if the skin feels slimy, it's probably moldy inside. I wouldn't use it. And mushrooms, if they smell like fish, say goodbye. So why is knowing food safety important? So the CDC estimates that each year, roughly 1 out of every 6 people in the United States, 48 million people, get sick from a foodborne illness. 128,000 of them are hospitalized, and 3,000 of them actually pass away. Especially important are our vulnerable populations, our younger children, our older adults, our pregnant women, people with compromised immune systems. Many of the people who are actually receiving the food that you distribute fall into this category. Acute foodborne illnesses cost the United States an estimated $152 billion a year in healthcare and in workplace and other economic losses. So food safety is pretty important. What are the main threats to food safety? Well, here we go. These are the greatest threats. We will address personal hygiene and time and temperature in the next few slides. But cross-contamination, what is that? That's when you use the same utensil without sanitizing on many different food items, or when you use a food surface with other food items without properly sanitizing in between. How do you properly sanitize? With a bleach solution. I mean, we can provide you those kinds of resources for proper sanitation. it's not okay to just wipe with a cloth because there isn't a sanitizing ingredient that's able to sanitize that surface. Okay, so threats to food safety, as we're learning, can occur in all steps of the food handling process. So let's talk about some proper procedures to avoid food safety practice that can lead to foodborne illness. Next slide, please, Cheryl. So good personal hygiene, honestly, is the most important tool you have to prevent foodborne illness. Many of the bacteria that can lead to foodborne illnesses are found right on your bodies, on our hair, skin, mouth, nose, throat, even in healthy people. So clearly, hands should be washed after sneezing, coughing, after touching foods that might be contaminated, touching any food, and certainly after using the restroom. Just want to make one important note. Hand sanitizers are not as effective as good hand washing at eliminating some bacteria such as norovirus and C. diff. Obviously, when hand washing is not available, hand sanitizers should be used. But please don't forget that hand sanitizing with washing is really the best way for keeping your hands clean. And the 20 seconds of soap and rinsing are very, very important in the protection of or prevention of foodborne illness. Next slide, please. So let's talk a second about disposable gloves. Disposable gloves are very acceptable when handling food. But a couple things. Gloves do not replace the need for good hand washing. And gloves are what we call a single-use item. That means if you're using a glove and touching one surface, and then for instance, if you're cutting peaches and you're working at a farmer's market and then you go to collect money for those peaches and you touch the cash and you come back to another item, those gloves need to be replaced. So once you go from one item and touching another item, the glove needs to be replaced and another glove put on. So you should really think of the glove as the same as your hands. Once you touch another item, you need to replace the glove. Okay, now let's get into the meat of control time and temperature. This might be a review for many of you, but it never hurts to review and to go over the danger zones. So all potentially hazardous foods, whether they're processed fruits and vegetables, meats, all potential hazardous foods must be kept at an appropriate temperature in order to keep food safe. A hot food must be kept at a temperature higher or warmer than 140 degrees at all times. A cold food must be kept at a temperature lower or colder than 41 degrees at all times. So in between that, the danger zone is both 41 degrees and 140 degrees. So the longer a food is in that temperature danger zone, the more time pathogens have to grow. So the goal is to limit the amount of time a food is in that danger zone. If a food is held in that danger zone for more than 4 hours, it should be discarded. So it's a good idea to check temperatures frequently, for instance, every 2 hours, to make sure that you're maintaining the correct temperature or out of the danger zone, and take corrective action if you're in that danger zone. So what would corrective action be? So let's suppose you got a donation of prepared salads, and you've gone to pick it up and it's in your car and it's in the middle of the summertime, and you've kept your air conditioning on, but you've gotten back to your location and the temperature is 47 degrees. It's taken you an hour to get to your location. Put that in the refrigerator immediately. So the corrective action is if you're in that danger zone and it's within the 4 hours, so it hasn't exceeded the 4 hour period, corrective action is return it to a refrigerator to bring it back down to temperature so it's out of the danger zone. What happens if you kind of forgot and you left that prepared salad in your car overnight? Well, do I need to really ask for an answer? The right answer is that product should be discarded. So that's the importance and the time and temperature. So it's the 4-hour maximum out of over the 140 degrees or below the 41 degrees. Okay, let's talk about some general storage. Next slide, please, Cheryl. All products should be stored at least 6 inches off the ground. And by the way, these are kind of quoting health department regulations. Why do we need to store all products at least 6 inches off the ground? For sanitation reasons, because if you have a product that's stored directly on the floor, there's no way to really clean under it. And we could have dirt or pest infestation and other. So always 6 inches off the ground. We've talked about cold items, keep them refrigerated. Just a note, even if they're not in the temperature, in the hazard temperature range, every time you move products in and out of the refrigerator, they don't become more potentially hazardous, but you're reducing the quality of those items. So it is very important to keep cold items refrigerated at less than 41 degrees. The other thing is in your refrigerators, and I know that many of you who I visited, I've brought thermometers. It's really important to keep a thermometer inside every refrigeration or freezer unit. Many units, especially new ones, have a built-in thermometer on the exterior door. That's great, but oftentimes they're not working properly. So, and actually the health department, if you were a licensed facility, would look for an internal temperature, an internal thermometer, and make sure that the thermometer reads in the right under less than 40 degrees. And the last is that check those temperatures, because oftentimes a refrigerator or a freezer can malfunction and we really don't know it. So it's really important to check the internal temperature frequently. I suggest twice a day. I also suggest posting a temperature log that you actually document the temperatures and initial it. So if something ever did occur, you would know how long when the last time you checked for the correct temperature, so you know about how long something might have been out of the proper temperature. Okay, so when receiving purchased produce, what are you supposed to do? This is stuff that was purchased, you're receiving it. Well, the first thing is you want to check the quantity that is on that invoice and make sure the quantity that you're receiving is actually the amount that is on the invoice. Once you sign that invoice, it sort of means that you're validating that the information is correct. So if there's a discrepancy, please indicate that on the invoice before you sign it. Then you're also, of course, going to look at quality. And if there's a question about quality, if items are overripe or certainly if they're moldy, you should bring that to the attention of the delivery person. And at all times, if you're in doubt, you can refuse to accept it. If it's something that you have received through an order that I've placed for you, you can feel free to call me at any time. But you are the gatekeeper for that product. So if something is questionable, you have the right to refuse it and change the invoice to reflect what you've actually accepted before you sign it. Also, if you're receiving a cold item that's warm to the touch, depending on that item, you also might want to refuse it. And also, if there's a quality issue that you're not receiving directly from a purchase that we've made through the county, but you're questioning it, you can always call the purchasing place the place that you purchased the item from. We're going to talk a little bit about canned produce, and the rules are the same. Of course, check the quantity. And if a can has a small dent, it's probably okay. It hasn't broken the seal, But if you're not comfortable, it is totally okay to refuse that item, change it on your invoice, and before you sign it. And you can contact me or the purchasing agent at any time. But a can that has a deep dent is really a concern, because a deep dent means that the seal may have broken and bacteria may have entered the can. So never would you accept or use a can that has a deep dent in it. As far as expiration date, that's spelled wrong, but I apologize for that. Expiration date is funny. Some are best used by, some are when they were packaged, some are when they a code that the manufacturer has. The only item that has a use by date is baby formula. Anything else could mean something else than the date is as we might interpret it. So if you have a question, please contact the purchasing agent. And many of you on this call have had questions and contacted me. And what happens then is that I'll call our vendor, and who will contact the manufacturer and get an understanding of what that date actually means. So it's always okay to question something that you don't understand. Okay, Cheryl, I'm turning it back to you.
All right, so thanks, Marla. I'm gonna return our conversation back to community food rescue and rescued food, actually. And just as an added thought about date labeling, because Community Food Rescue and Manna Food Center handles a lot of food that's past date, I just want to emphasize that a lot of those dates really is a reflection of what the manufacturer thinks of as the best quality, but does not reflect food safety. And I'm going to talk a little bit later on some of the resources that will help guide you in understanding when food is safe to eat. So we have our own set of food safety issues when we're dealing with recovered food. And as you can imagine, some of recovered food is at the end of its useful life. So with regard to that, Community Food Rescue has created a food safety guideline set. It was created through Manna Food Center, and it's been vetted by the county's health department. And so we ask all network members of Community Food Rescue to refer to these food safety guidelines. And it includes all types of food, which includes recovered food as well. I'm showing you now just a screenshot from our website, the communityfoodrescue.org website. And you'll see that there's great links to these food safety guidelines. They're in a PDF format. You can download them, you can print them. Please use them, share them widely in case you're needing some specific guidelines for food safety. Community Food Rescue also has food safety videos, and we use this for our volunteer food runners on how to transport food safely. So actually, Community Food Rescue requires all volunteers to review our food safety guidelines and to review this video, and then to take and pass a quiz before they're actually able to become active food runners. So we do take food safety very seriously, and we want to make sure that anybody who's volunteering with us has all the good information and is following those guidelines. We also have food runner guidelines for handling food, and you can see here's another short video of Jenna showing you how to store food properly in your car if you are either a food runner or even a staff member who's transporting food. Our volunteer food runners are also asked to track their food runs and as they're happening, and then either on their phone as they're happening, or when they get back home on their laptop computers or their home computers, to enter in the details of each food run into the ChowMatch software. This may include time and temperature for food when it's picked up and dropped off, if it's a potentially hazardous food. We don't ask volunteers to take the temperature of food, but to note when it was pulled from a refrigerator or freezer by talking to the food donor business directly. They note that in the food run, and they also note when the food run was completed. We also ask them to include any notes or any concerns about their experience. And this becomes a permanent record in Chow Match, so that if there is ever a concern, the health department needs to contact us, we have a detailed record of each food run. Marla, back to you.
Thank you, Cheryl. So we're going to ask you some questions, little quiz. And our first one is, now this is a purchased fruits, purchased product. You ordered a fruit salad that has watermelon and cantaloupe chunks, strawberry slices, and blueberries delivered. The container feels warm. Are you going to A, place it in the freezer, B, place it in the refrigerator, C, discard it, D, refuse to accept, and contact your administrator? We'll give you a few minutes and you'll have the opportunity to answer via a poll.
We have a few folks answering now. We're gonna, just because we're keeping an eye on the clock, we're going to end this one. Get your answer in right now. We'll show you where everyone came out on that, and take it away, Marla and Cheryl.
Okay. So actually, we can look at the answer, but all right, 73%. You guys are good. Just quickly, we wouldn't do A or B because we don't know how long it was out of temperature. We don't know, it could have been more than 4 hours. So it wouldn't be acceptable to do that. And why would you want to discard something when you've purchased it? At least we'd want to get a credit or get a replacement. So D is the correct answer. Good job.
All right, next question. What is the longest that a time and temperature for food safety food can be out of temperature control before it must be discarded? So if you would launch the poll and choose your answer.
Looks good. We're gonna end that poll, and how did you all do? Sure.
Good job. Yes, 4 hours is correct. It's why we ask our volunteer food runners not to stop for errands or to eat lunch when making a food run, and why we want to make sure that our food assistance providers have proper refrigeration before delivering any TCS foods to them. So I'm going to go on quickly to our third question. So which foods are a TCS food? Just harvested whole green beans, an open jar of applesauce, bananas, or cooked green beans? Go ahead and launch that poll, please. And here's a hint, it could be more than one answer.
All right. We'll see how you do.
All right, you guys rock. Yes, there are two answers actually. It's the open jar of applesauce and the cooked green beans. And of course, those are prepared foods and or have been opened, so they need to be under temperature control. And our last question, which products are considered potentially hazardous foods? Donated prepared salads, a dented can of mushrooms, mixed fruit salad, or all of the above?
Okay, here we go.
Okay, great. Yes, all of the above. These foods really need to be further evaluated to see if they're suitable for consumption. So think about these things. Has any of the produce, such as the prepared salads and cut up fruit salad, they are going to be time and temperature controlled foods. Think about, have the salads been under proper time and temperature control? You want to examine that can of mushrooms. How severe is the dent and where is the dent located? If it's along a seam or severely dented, it should be discarded. So with the few remaining minutes that we have, I just want to share some resources for you. And again, these resources and slides are going to be shared after this presentation. This is the Community Food Rescue website landing page. We have a wealth of open source resources on our website. We have a special section that's devoted to the perspective of food donor businesses, another section specifically for food assistance providers, and a third section for our volunteer food runners. So if you are a food assistance organization, you will click on a link, and through these colorful drop-down menus, you'll be able to see how to join, how to create a profile, how to receive food donations, and so on. We've also created a lovely trifold brochure that is called Keeping Food Safe from Pantry to Plate. It's written for consumers of recovered food, and it's on our CFR website. It's in 6 different languages. Everyone's welcome to use it digitally or print it and hand it out. It covers how to store, thaw, cook food safely. And then on the other side, as I mentioned, there's a list of shelf-stable common foods, and we also offer clues for food safety and what the dates on packaging mean. So this has been a wildly popular brochure for a lot of folks. And lastly, we just want to invite you to contact myself or Marla if you have any questions about anything that we've shared today, and we're happy to talk to you.
Thank you so much. Ooh, excuse me. Thank you so much, Marla and Cheryl. I've been through food safety training so many times, and every time I sit through it, I'm like, thank God for this. I feel like it is so important to continue to get these refreshers if you've done it before. If you're new to all of this and thinking about accessing fresh produce for your clients, you're now starting to see some of the infrastructure and all of the considerations that come into play to keep our clients safe. And all of these fabulous resources that you can go to really educate yourself on this. So thank you very much to Marla and Cheryl for all of that information. Before we switch gears a little bit, we did want to do one more poll just to engage you all. And this poll is to sort of survey all of you to find out what your barriers to securing fresh produce are. So I'm going to launch this poll right now. It's just one question, and we recognize that not all of you on board are food assistance providers. So the very last option there does provide for those who are not food assistance providers. But for those who are, we were trying to find out, and hopefully you can click on as many of these options as are applicable to you. But where are you finding the difficulty there? Is it locating the resources? Is it the cost involved? Is it the infrastructure that you need to keep things safe, cold storage or delivery issues? Or the second to last option there is that you're just smooth sailing and no problems whatsoever. So if that's your case, let us know, because we want to come and find out what you're doing right. But for the rest of you, just let us know. And while we have this poll open, we did want to open the floor up for any questions to Marla and Cheryl directly. I'm looking at the clock, so maybe we're going to shut this down because we do have 2 more presenters here. We did want to switch gears for a second. So I'm going to just end this poll now, and we are going to capture the results and share them with you all in our follow-up email. It's our little teaser to keep you interested in looking for that follow-up when it comes. But for now, we wanted to switch gears for those of you who either wanted to augment what you're already providing to your clients, or if you are looking for ways to connect clients to fresh produce and you do not have the infrastructure, or you're not interested in actually getting into the business of food distribution, we wanted to throw a few resources your way. And the first thing we're going to do is introduce you to Jenny Freeman. She is the Executive Director of Community Farm Share, and she is going to share with us how Community Farm Share does its work in connecting local farms to those individuals who are facing insecurity after a career in microfinanced and moved to the Poolsville area and lives in the Montgomery County's Agricultural Reserve. And she is going to share with us her efforts at Community Farm Share. So take it away, Jennifer.
Okay, thank you so much for letting me have a few minutes to be here today and share what we're doing. I'm really excited to be here. So Community Farm Share, we started, like you said, just about a year ago. And what we do is we connect families experiencing food insecurity who either through financial reasons or through their locations and access don't have access to fresh produce easily. We partner with 7 local Montgomery County vegetable farms. All of these vegetable farms that we partner with are CSA farms, which means that's a community supported agriculture, which means they produce a wide variety of vegetables. And so for their customers, they are able to produce weekly bags of produce that usually contains about 6 to 8 different variety of seasonal items, maybe 10, 12, 15 pounds of food every week, and get those to their customers. And so what we do in Community Farm Share is we work together with community partners, and we gather donations from private individuals, also organizations, to fund those shares. What we call a share would be that weekly bag of vegetables lasting about 25 weeks out of the season from spring through the fall. Let's pick that day. So this is the healthiest, highest densely nutrient dense food out there that we deliver to our clients. And okay, next slide. Just explain quickly how we work. So it's a kind of a very simple 3-step model. The funding comes into the organization. We do pay our farmers their price that they ask for their CSA that they pay, that they have for any of their customers, because we firmly believe that that's part of how we can help to build a local resilient food system. And so by paying the farmers that we can, obviously they can expand, they can grow, we can encourage new smaller farmers to get started into the program, or just to get started in farming, I should say, and then join the program when they can. But basically we do pay the farmers, and then simply we have our volunteer drivers who pick up the farm shares every week from the farm and deliver them to the families. We do generally have the same drivers connect with the families, so that there's also relationship with them too, so that we do build that sense of community and connection between the farmers and between the drivers and between the people receiving the food. So that's next. Okay, next step. So what we wanted to offer is a way, I think as somehow, some of the funding situation is changing within the county. And I think Marla had mentioned too, that one option for accessing fresh produce is in the purchasing way. And so we do want to be able to partner with any food assistance providers who are interested in the program, to be able to buy these CSA shares. And then partner with you on, which clients you would want to be serving. I mean, generally our program, we do focus on, it's for anybody who's food insecure, but let's say additionally, clients who, for example, have health issues, maybe they had diabetes. We worked with one food assistance provider who helps clients with diabetes. And so we then provide the fresh produce afterwards. They go through this training program, and that was just a great segue to support, people with health issues. We also partnered with linkages to learning, to work with families that have kids, because of course it's great to get kids to eat this fresh produce right away, and especially the level of the taste, the nutrient value, being freshly harvested from the farm that day and local is fantastic. And so one of the things we recognize as we started to explore the option of working with food assistance providers is in terms of the cost. And so we are looking into and have some funds available to do like a matching program. If there's ways that with you, actually, let's go to the next slide. I can get into the partnership thing. ideas. Next slide. So for how we can partner together is we would love to find ways to make it possible or make it easier for food assistance providers to connect and purchase these CSA shares for your clients. And how we might be able to do that is kind of in two ways. One is that if you are having, reach out to your circle of donors and supporters as saying, you can help to support your families that you support with the healthiest fresh local produce from our local farms. You're also supporting the environment because it's a low carbon footprint. You're also, each donation is also supporting the local food system and developing up our resilient food system. So there's a lot of positive messaging, I think, that people can make, that organizations can make to reach out to ask for funding to support this effort. And likewise, what I was saying a minute before is that also we do recognize that local organic fresh produce is, quite honestly, does have a higher cost generally than the bulk produce that's traveled a long distance, that is not as nutrient dense. It's commodity produce or conventionally grown and stuff. And so we do want to try to find ways to work with you to reduce that, make that more accessible to people, because we understand your funding is also is difficult, obviously, to have this purchase. So. I think that's it. I'm just being mindful of the time. We have another speaker. It's already 12 o'clock, I think, almost, or in a few minutes. So I just want to say, please reach out. Contact information is there. We're a small, flexible organization. We can work with you, meet needs, figure out ways to connect, which is super great to make sure that each, whatever your needs are, we can figure out a way to connect with you and make it happen. But it's just another option for providing fresh produce from our local farms. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, we're quickly running out of time. We're mindful of your time and the clock, but we did want to move to one more important part of the equation, and that is connecting individuals to produce through some of the federal benefits programs through our local farmers markets. And so for that, I'm going to turn it over to Allison Schnitzer, who is the new manager of food access initiatives here at the Montgomery Food County. And she is going to talk about those issues. Allison, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to very quickly cover how to access fresh produce using federal nutrition benefits. Okay, so here's a little chart. Where can you use your benefits and which ones can you use where? So grocery stores is where you're really going to be using your SNAP or your WIC benefits. And I put links there to retail locators, farmers markets. At participating ones, you can use SNAP. There is also the WIC Farmers Market Nutrition Program and the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the subsequent slides. And then online, you can use SNAP online. And I put the retailers there in Maryland where you can currently use SNAP online. I have heard talks of a matching or incentive program for fruits and vegetables online. So, be on the lookout for that, hopefully in the future. Next slide, please. Okay, so benefits that you can use at farmers markets. So WIC has a coupon program that you can use. So if you are eligible for WIC, you can be issued these coupons in addition to your regular WIC benefits, and you can use them to buy eligible foods at participating farmers markets or farms or roadside stands. And these benefits will come through your WIC office. Then for seniors who Cynthia. For seniors, you can use the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. This is operated through the Department of Aging in Maryland. I put a phone number there for more information. I had a little trouble finding the actual application for this, but usually seniors can apply through Montgomery County Senior Centers, or you can, if seniors are already on SNAP, they can work with whoever they're working with for SNAP to help with this. Next slide, please. Okay, in terms of matching, so Maryland has a wonderful program, the Maryland Market Money Program, which will match dollar per dollar up to $10 of your SNAP or WIC purchases of eligible foods at participating farmers markets. So there's a hyperlink there that will let you know which ones are the participating farmers markets in all of Maryland. And then I listed a few markets in Montgomery County that actually provide additional matching funds. So This may not be a comprehensive list, but this is what I was able to uncover. And then I've also put the full list of farmers markets and programs accepted in Montgomery County there for you. Next slide, please. Can we go to the next slide? I don't know if there's, okay, awesome. And then I just wanted to put some links about if you need to refer anyone to signing up for SNAP or signing up for WIC. Here are some resources for you. And then I put the eligibility pre-screening tools for both to give you a sense of the eligibility criteria. And that is all I have in 3 minutes.
Thank you so much, Allison. That was a monumental task in a little bit of time, and it could have served probably as its own training for an hour, which is all to say that the Montgomery County Food Council has recently been designated as a community-based organization. So look for us for more SNAP training in the future. We also saw some information in the chat box there about flyers for SNAP Ed resources that cover some of this information. And yes, we will be providing links to the presentation slides. I know there's a lot of live links in those with a lot of these resources, so you will be connected to all of that in our follow-up. I recognize we're about a minute over time. I wanted to say that we will stay on the phone for a few minutes to entertain any questions that you all may have. I wanted to give a sincere thanks to our speakers today, Marla and Cheryl and Jennifer and Allison, for really giving us a sort of comprehensive look. Hopefully we whetted your appetite for how to access more produce and how to do it in a safe manner. And with that, I wanted to launch a quick evaluation survey. We do these at the end of all of our virtual trainings so that we can get a sense from you all how we did and how we can serve you better in the future. So we're going to launch that. And as I said, stay on the line here in case you have questions you would like to ask. But thank you all for participating. We really appreciate your support and your engagement in all of this. And I will launch that survey now. And there you go. So we'll just keep that up as we wrap things up today. Thanks again to everybody. Any questions from the group? Did we see anything in the chat, Emery, that?
Yes, there was one question so far that hadn't been answered, and that was from, just scrolling back to find it, from Maria Rodil. As a new food provider, what do we need to do to receive produce from the county?
I'll take that one.
Thanks, Marla.
Maria, let's connect. I'll put my email address into the chat box and see how I can be of service to you. So I'll put my address in the chat box right now. Thanks.
More questions from anyone? I did want to mention too, Susan, do you want to just add about the gardening subcommittee really quickly? I forgot, that totally escaped my mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. So the Montgomery County Food Council convenes a community of practice for folks who are already doing community gardening right in their community, directly growing food, and for folks who are interested in starting a community garden and want to network a little bit or hear about resources that can be helpful. So I just wanted to offer that in case anyone in this training today is thinking about growing food at your own organization or is curious about how to get started with that. Right now, we've decided we're not going to meet in December. We meet every 2 months. So we'll be taking December off for the holidays and then hopefully reconvening in January. So please reach out to me over email if you would like to be added to that list, and the Food Council will keep you in the loop. So I will share my email in the chat box right now. Please feel free to reach out to me if you'd like more information about that group. And thank you. And thank you all so much for attending today.
Thanks, everyone. think we've got everyone who's going to participate in our poll, so I'm shutting that down. And thanks again, everyone, for attending, and be on the lookout for more virtual trainings from us coming up soon. We will include specifics both at our community call on Monday at 1 o'clock and in the follow-up to this email. Thanks again.
Awesome presentations.
Thank you, Carla.
Thanks, Carla. Glad you were able to be here.
Yes. See you all later. Have a good day.